Nicholas, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. What about you?
Good. I saw something in the news this week that Kelsey is America's number one trending dog name. Kelsey from the Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey, the NFL football players. Do you have a pet? And what if you do? What's your pet's name?
I do have a pet, but it's not Kelsey though. It's Maya.
Maya.
I know. All right. Well, let's
Well,
dive.
that's nice.
Yeah, I know. Let's dive in.
All right.
Hello, everyone. This is Nico, your host with Extremely, and this is another episode of the VCommerce Show. As usual, I am with Matt from E6 Marketing, the company that gets you on QVC and HSN, and I am obviously Nico. I've just said that with Extremely, and we can help you getting on the video commerce space, live stream shopping on your website, social media. I am so excited to be here today for another episode of the VCommerce Show, the show about the top 4 news of the V-commerce. Matt, carry on. Let us know what the show is about.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. So the VCommerce Show is it was based on video commerce, where it began in from QVC and HSN and infomercials many years ago, 45 years ago, and now it's evolved into shopping on your phone, shopping on your tablet, shopping on your computer. So Nicholas and I, our backgrounds are in multimedia and business, and we talk about the video commerce space with you. Hopefully this show is fun, a little entertaining, and you'll learn something interesting on top of it. So Nicholas, let's get started.
Yeah, I am I think it was a pretty interesting week going on. The first thing I have seen that I really absolutely wanted to talk about is a report that was published by Statista, and what they look at the monthly retail and food and services sales. So obviously that also includes restaurant sales in the United States, seasonally adjust current dollar versus constant dollar, right? Because we have been talking on the show like, hey, retail is doing well, it's growing, and the economy is growing and everything, but what does it do in constant dollar? Well, actually, in constant dollar, the numbers is telling a different story. It's actually pretty flat. Look at this graph, right? So this is a green graph. And even though, so first of all, there has been a slight decline in October, right, by 0.1%, if based on the latest numbers. But more interestingly, I think what it says is that, yes, sales are up, but it's all inflation. And I don't know, I just thought it's an interesting, right? We have been talking quite a bit about this, and that report really shocked me. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Well, I know next week we have a special guest coming into the show to talk about Black Friday weekend, and we're going into next weekend is Black Friday weekend, and I'm assuming that's usually or traditionally America's number one shopping weekend and destination, and that's where all the sales come in and all the retailers really push. And brick and mortar and e-com as well. So this data is a little surprising. When the news comes out and says things are improving, I think of things are improving. I don't really think about how or why. I just think there's more consumer spending. So this highlights inflation being a part of the dynamic of it becoming flat. So that's a little discouraging because the inflation dynamic is supposed to be balance things out, where in this statistic and this story, it kind of drops the results. So yeah. It's interesting to see. Now we're talking on November 17th right now. We're in the heart of the fourth quarter, the biggest shopping season of the year, and to hear a flat number this late in November is a little discouraging.
Yeah, it is, and in some way, it does reflect a little bit more like the overall dynamic. We talked about that last week where you're saying, hey, QVC and HSN, you're crushing it and all that. But I will tell you, talking to brand and retailers on my part, they all say the same thing. They're really worried about the past couple of months. And so this definitely have a sense of reflection of that. So I don't know. I just felt it was an interesting indicator. But let's take something a little bit more optimistic. What's the news for you this week?
No, I saw a story just this morning about Amazon and Walmart getting into the buy now, pay later dynamic. That's a big thing at QVC and HSN. QVC calls it Easy Pay. And this buy now, pay later dynamic is you buy something for $100 and you could spread out the payments interest free over 4 months or 3 months or 5 months or even up to 6 months, depending on the retailer's dynamic. And it's really easy for the consumer to digest. So whether it be an expensive product or an inexpensive product, if you can get it down to $10, $15, $20, $25 a month, it's very digestible, where $150 or $200 some dollar product might be a little tough to handle in a given month. So now that Amazon and Walmart involved with this, I think it's a healthy thing for the consumer. It's absolutely consumer driven and consumer positive to spread out those payments. You just have to, as a consumer, just have to watch and make sure you're not overindulging month over month because you're putting everything on Easy Pay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something to say about the buy now, pay later from an e-com perspective. I think there's when you think about what's going on in the space, I think there's really two systems. You have company like Splitit, for instance. We had them recently. I had a chance to meet with the CEO, which is doing actually a buy now, pay later by leveraging your actual credit card debt already. I mean, like not the debt, but like your allowance on your credit card. So the consumer is actually not underwriting a new loan. And you're not underwriting a new loan, and then you have a much faster click through. So instead of like having, like 7 or 8 clicks to get all the way to the checkout, it's like it's one click, it's done. And I think the other benefit is really around you as a consumer, as not as a consumer, but as a brand, you actually own the data. Where in the case of Klarna and those Afterpay and all that, they are the one owning the data and the customer relationship. So that's one model. The buy now, pay later from a Klarna and all those other platform, really it's about, they own the relationship. The user have to write another loan. So I think you really want to think about what model you want, right? Do you want the actual consumer to have to write another loan? I think as a consumer, it's important to, especially like credit card debt is high right now. And I think one of the challenge with those buy now, pay later is like recovering that money. But, because at the end of the day, who is actually leveraging those platforms, right? It's typically folks that have a lower credit score, right? So they're already in difficulties, and you're actually writing on the loan. So I would just encourage brand to think about like what kind of model you want, and not jump at the first one that has the most VC dollar in behind to tell you, hey, this is what we can do for you. I don't know. I just feel it's a fascinating space. It's actually driving sales for sure, but there are 2 different models out there, and then I think finding the one that works for you is very important in my point of view.
Just the other day, I heard that QVC's third quarter dynamic, 67% of the purchases were through Easy Pay.
Oh,
and
wow.
QVC calls it Easy Pay. Almost 70% of the
crazy,
orders.
right?
That is huge. So
huge, yeah.
Without that dynamic, I think the customer would be much more hesitant. You're talking about click times. It's hard to make that big purchase decision, especially as we just talked about the economy, without being able to allocate over a month's of duration. So yeah. I think it's a healthy thing for the consumer, as long as the consumer's smart about it. And from the vendor side or the consumer or the brand side, you just have to play the long game. You're not going to get paid 100% after that first month, but if you're in it for the long game, you're going to get paid, and it's going to work out in your favor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. My following news is about TikTok. I know we have to be careful not to be like a TikTok promoter, but to end up like TikTok is really this behemoth in this space. And last week you talked about TikTok being banned in Indonesia. And this week, the news is that, well, obviously TikTok is trying to fight for that. They are not giving up really quickly or that easily. They're actually trying to pair up with several e-com platform to see how they could get back in the game. What's interesting, it was a report that was done by a newsletter, and actually Sharon Guy, who was someone that was on the podcast, actually collaborated to that newsletter. And on that newsletter, they were actually referring, they had a chance to speak with several users of in Indonesia of live shopping, video commerce. And something that really amazes me, and I'm curious to know if you know that. So that person actually, so the newsletter is called The Rest of the World. And that person moved to Shopee, which is a platform that do video shopping as well. I'm curious, do you think that that person moving from TikTok to that platform Shopee actually gain sales, lose sales, was flat? What's your point of view? And doing the same thing, right? Just a different platform.
Well, I know that TikTok's parent company, I saw $29 billion in revenue in Q2 alone.
Wow,
29 billion.
crazy.
So
Yeah?
they're right up there with the Metas of the world in starting to get into this whole space. So to answer your question, I'm guessing they took a hit. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how big of a hit they took.
They took a 50% hit on sales, right?
Wow.
So think of it like as a store owner, right? When you rely on video commerce as a big source of income, taking a 50% of it, it's a pretty massive hit. I'm assuming, like for a lot of merchants in Indonesia, they're gonna quickly voice their concern to their government. I'm assuming about like, hey, we gotta get those people back on the game. We're losing too much sales. I'm curious to see how this is gonna play out. I wonder if there will be a rise from the population about, hey, we need to do live shopping on those platforms because you know it obviously was banned for safety reason and like privacy reason, but I'm curious to see how this is going to pan out, honestly.
Well, obviously, we're both fans of the video commerce dynamic and its growth, but diversification is key. You can't put all your eggs in the one basket. And it sounds like that company, it was really relying on that one dynamic, and they paid the price. I saw another thing, and I know we don't want to always talk about TikTok. Uh, a Pew survey said 14% of U.S. adults regularly get their news from TikTok.
Oh wow,
14%. That's
crazy.
quadrupled over 3 years. That stat has quadrupled. So I'm blown away by this growth, and you have to understand it, and you have to start getting paying attention to it. If you're in the e-commerce space or the retail space, it's just too big of an animal to ignore.
Yeah, absolutely. It is too big of an animal to ignore, and I'm yeah, just very interested about what's the future has to hold. So what else do you have for us this week?
I listened to a podcast and I saw an article talking about retail media, and that kind of struck my attention. Not just with e-commerce and video commerce and things that we do, but paid media and what big companies and small companies are doing with advertising dollars, and how they're gaining customer information. The article that I read, retail media spending amounted to an estimated $101 billion in 2022 and is
Crazy.
projected to grow to $160 million by 2027. That is insane. So that the dynamic of the article and the dynamic of the podcast I was listening to was, they talked about customer privacy. They talked about customer data being an important part of it, the point of sale. How do you grab that customer? How do you engage with that customer? And then all the big retail players that are spending a lot of money in this performance marketing dynamic, like Walgreens and Amazon and Target and Kroger. What do you think about retail media and how it contributes to the e-com and v-commerce space?
I think it's been the topic of the year. I think you go to any conference or anything, people are talking about retail media. Retail media is the vehicle to grow. And as a matter of fact, if you look at advertising in general, the space is growing, but not everywhere it's growing. The people that are growing are either the one that are very close to carts, and so that's where the retail media space is like that's really booming, like the Amazon of the world, or the people that where you can actually, or the Instacart or things like that. And then the one that have massive audience. So if you're in the middle, like I will say, you have a good audience, but it's not like huge, you're actually not growing, it's actually shrinking for you. And so as I'm thinking about this, I think it's fascinating, right? We see that massive people wants to, I mean, the advertisers and brands wants to have better ROI on their ad spend, and either they go through the masses or they want to control the click to action. And I think retail media is great for that, right? Instacart has been investing a lot this year on it, and they're clearly one of the winners, at least from my perspective, from what I could hear, what could read. Um, in terms of obviously the big winners in the space is Amazon, but there's also what we're seeing a lot of retailers that have spin-off companies just for retail media, right? I think Kroger has one, Target has one now, and so there's really an interesting shift in dynamic between, hey, we used to sell product, but now not only we sell product, but we actually drive a lot of revenue from retail media. That's very fascinating space.
I know. Part of the information I was reading was about the importance of QR codes now. So you're seeing QR codes on television commercials. You're seeing QR codes on packaging, and that is customer data. So to market and sell back to that consumer that's already bought one thing from you, and then you could kind of own their data to an extent, either their email or their mailing address, and market back to them. I think that's very savvy and smart, because she's already bought from you. That part of it's good. Then the conversation kind of turned towards consumer privacy and how much data is out there that's good. I think we're getting into a world where customer data is hard to protect.
But then on the other side, like for the, I think this came to my realization right at the beginning, where retail media was it, and I was like, why is retail media so big and so predominant, and why it's growing so fast? But I think for the listeners, the average listeners that may be on the show or they may not know about this, something that really struck my attention when I read that or I heard that is that when you think about a company like Unilever or Nestle, right? They actually don't know who you are. Like when you shop a Nestle product or Unilever product, they don't know who you are, right? They have no clue. I mean, they have guesstimate, right? They do like surveys out there, but where do you shop those products? You go shop to Kroger, you go shop to Amazon, you go to shop to place where you actually, but you as a user, you are shopping from those distributor in some way, right? Those aggregator. But the big guy on the back end, they have no clue that who you are unless you go to their actual e-com. And so for those guys, they want to build a relationship with you, because if they build a relationship with you as a consumer, they will know what's your preference like, what's going to be better for you. And so this has tremendous amount of value for the brands to build a relationship with you. And today, the Amazon, all those places, they want to keep close guard on who you are. And actually, when you place a PO and when you place an order to Amazon, that Nestle and all that, they get a randomized item. They have no idea who is behind that purchase. So, the data is really siloed where the merchant is, and that's why retail media is so big, because now they can advertise, say, hey, you want to talk with me? Hey, but you have to pay, and then I'll put an ad to make sure that your ad talk to me. So that's very interesting, I think.
And isn't that one of the reasons why the e-com ecosystem has grown so much since COVID began? Because now the retailers are directly communicating with their consumers. They know who you are, and they can market to you and give you what you want. So I think knowing who you're talking to and knowing your consumer is just an invaluable part of how you do everything, with how you do pricing, with how you do picking colors, picking sizes, picking flavors, whatever you're doing. You have to know who your consumer is, and it is easy to get lost in this big retail behemoth. And you talk about like the big guys like Walmart and Target and Kroger and Albertson. I like those kind of companies. Of course, those kind of companies are successful for all retailers, but having that ownership of your of a little bit with your website of D2C plays a major role. You have to communicate to her and talk to her in a direct way, and to grow the business through her. And that's what you do from D2C.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we are about to wrap this up. I have a special shout out before we do. I wanted to make a shout out to Audrey Donaldson. She was actually on the podcast of the Live Ecom podcast and was published this week. And she talked about innovation in a very different lens at a more macro level, and how your brand and e-commerce should think about e-commerce. It's a topic that we haven't dived into, so it's kind of slightly different from the video commerce. But I felt the conversation was really cool. So I encourage you to check this out. And the other thing, also shout out I will want to do, it's obviously in the video commerce space, we are all competition, where we are all working together to make this a better world and a better space for consumers. And I want to make a quick shout out to Best Buy that decided to start their first video commerce, and they do it on a platform called TalkShop Live. They have 5 shows, so encourage you to check them out, because obviously the more people engage and interact with video commerce, the more folks will be educated that you can actually shop from video. And I think the whole ecosystem will grow. So super excited about those 2 big news. As usual, guys, if you have any questions, want to get on QVC or HSN, go chat with Matt. If you actually a D2C customer or retail and wants to own the relationship and start to do your own video commerce on your website, social media, email, SMS, chat with me. We are here to help you. We are here every Friday, actually, at 11. I don't know if next week is Thanksgiving, Matt. How are we gonna play this out? Like I haven't thought about this.
Well, we'll be on Black Friday. That's the
Oh.
best day of the year. I think my energy's going already for that kind of a conversation. What's
Awesome.
going to be happening in the midst of our podcast in the consumer e-com space? So I'm excited to talk next week.
Yeah, maybe we'll find a show and then we'll bring it on to see like how the excitement is. Something like that. That could be cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for your comments. It's been an amazing ride so far with having you on board. If you want to share, if you want to comment, if you want to let us know how we can do this better, please let us know. Until next Friday. Thanks everyone. I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.